In many ways, the life of a critic is easy, but in some ways it's actually very difficult. Whether you critique food, film, theater, paintings, whether you have a degree or certificate that gives you the right to criticize, or you just give more than 5 minutes to look at someone's creation and think about it, critics have a certain level of power over the people whose work they critique, sometimes an unfair amount of power. But with that power, there also comes a lot of frustration, a lot of animosity, and quite a bit of responsibility. And probably my favorite, and one of the few, examples of this in film is Ratatouille's Grim Eater, Anton Ego. At the beginning of the film, Ego is introduced as essentially the antithesis to Augustus Gusteau, a flamboyant and passionate chef who insists that anyone can cook. Ego, on the other hand, scoffs at this idea, stating that not anyone can cook. At first, these two seem like complete opposites, but there is one very important way in which they are similar. Ego, in his own way, while not showing it outwardly, is very passionate about food. He states himself, "I take food seriously." Anyone who takes any profession seriously does so because they are passionate about it, even if they may not be as enthusiastic as some people. And like any person who takes their work seriously, Ego is shocked and almost offended when he learns that Gusteau's restaurant has begun to regain its popularity under a new and apparently untrained chef named Linguini, though he's not shocked enough to waste good wine. This causes him to arrive and challenge Linguini, essentially declaring himself Linguini's opponent. From this, you get the sense that Ego has sort of accepted his role as something of a necessary evil. And while sometimes it does feel like critics are evil, that they are harsh and sometimes downright vicious, they are necessary. They are there to challenge an artist and push them to be their best selves. Ego is here to push Linguini to be as good as everyone says he is. And Linguini responds to this challenge by telling Ego that he's thin for someone who likes food, which is kind of the equivalent of telling a critic that if he hates his field so much, he's in the wrong line of work. If you don't like it, you don't have to watch. And Ego's response mirrors the response of pretty much every critic. I don't like food, I love it. I don't like film, I love it. I don't like art, I love it. Just as Gusteau was heartbroken over being told he wasn't as good of a cook as he thought he was, Ego is offended at being told he doesn't like food. He loves food. Critics love art. They see what it can be and what it can do for people, and they want to discover new forms of that. But so often they have to deal with hacks who seem to just be trying to make money with minimal effort. So they refuse to swallow that crap. If you can't present something new and meaningful, then you aren't worth their time. The next time we see Ego, outside of Linguini's dreams, he's at Gusteau's restaurant and requests some perspective. Essentially, he wants to really get to know Linguini through his cooking. He wants Linguini's perspective on anything. Unfortunately, and much to Ego's frustration, they are fresh out. So Ego offers to provide his own perspective on Linguini. This is another frustration that critics suffer from. They want to get to know the people behind creations. They want to see how the artist thinks, how they work. They want to discuss more than just good or bad. They want to see the world through another person's eyes and connect with that individual. They want to think and understand and decide if it's for them. And if the creator chooses to leave something to the imagination, that's fine as well. But anyone can check a bunch of boxes and throw something at a critic. They want to know what real thought was put into the creation. Nothing is more frustrating for a critic than to feel like you've put more thought into a work of art than the artist. But then, Ego gets his perspective in the form of Remy's ratatouille, which really is just stewed vegetables. And in that, he is reminded of his own mother's cooking. Now, I can't describe food as an experience, good or bad. I've never eaten at a 5-star restaurant or even set foot in Paris. I'm pretty sure the most fancy meal I've ever had came from Olive Garden or Red Lobster. But the best food I've ever had was my mother's own cooking. And sappy as it may be, I do think the love that went into the dish was a big part of it. I do think that one can tell when devotion and love has been put into someone's work, be it a simple meal or a beautiful sculpture, painting, or film. In this case, I think Ego tastes Remy's love and devotion to Gusto's restaurant and what the chef represented, and interprets it as the love and devotion of a parent for their child. That interpretation may be a stretch, but that's the beauty of interpretation. Ego is then further surprised when he learns that a rat prepared this amazing meal. This requires him to do some soul searching. His review is in many ways a fantastic summary of what it means to be a critic. Ego starts by acknowledging the fact that despite the frustration of putting up with talentless hacks who devalue the art the critic holds dear and the pissants who enable them, a critic's career and livelihood is rarely at the mercy of the beliefs and opinions of a hopefully ideally educated, devoted, and open-minded but still elite few. He then acknowledges that despite how flawed a work may be, there are still those who find true meaning in many works that critics deem useless. Sometimes all a person wants is a mindless action to escape from the stress of life. Some people truly want a trashy romance to succeed because it gives them hope for their own. That indiscernible drawing on the fridge will never be recognized as a great work of art, nor should it, but it's a reminder of someone's pride and joy. He then highlights the most important and best part of being a critic: the discovery and defense of the new. Ego is a man who has grown frustrated with the old, stale half-efforts of the chefs in Paris, but has finally found something new, passionate, and interesting. As a critic, he cannot bring himself to let Remy's species get in the way of the praise he deserves, even at the cost of his own career, and he is finally able to acknowledge that there was some truth to Gusto's mantra. Ego is a fascinating character who perfectly captures what it means to be a critic, both its frustrations and its joys. A critic is willing to deal with those frustrations and animosities, all in the hopes of discovering those phenomenal performances, those breathtaking paintings, those fantastic meals. I'm Tides of Glory. Thank you for watching.